Hey everyone, Valence Ring here with Non-Decor Duco in State 16. I wanted to do a quick video, well it's not going to be quick, but wanted to do a video on one of the biggest questions that I get all the time, which is about resources. This is a very large topic and it's going to be difficult to cover in a short time frame, but stay tuned, stay with me, and I promise I'm going to give you a lot of great information regarding how to get resources, how to maximize your resource production, and things like that. So definitely like and subscribe. This is probably one of the hardest videos I've done yet, so give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you want more great content like this, please subscribe to my channel, and I will be putting out more videos as soon as I can. So first of all, I do want to cover some of the basics, and I know some players want to be free to play and some don't mind spending some money. That being said, one of the very first most important things you can do early on in the game, if at all possible, if you're willing to spend the money, is to buy the builder set and the tech set of gear. This gear will give you cost reductions on all of your building and your research. So for instance, a 4-star builder hammer reduces your build food cost by 2 million and your total build food cost by 10%. Of course, there are other benefits, and each one of these items does reduce the cost for food, steel, lumber, etc. So this is the first way that you are going to be able to save resources and reduce your overall cost. Absolutely, probably one of the most important things that you can do if you want to play this game for the long term, and if you really want to get to headquarters level 5. um, I would definitely recommend these sets. That being said, I understand if you don't want to spend the money for them, absolutely. And there you can buy a 5-star set, which is even a little bit more expensive, and you can buy a 3-star set, which is relatively inexpensive. At least get the 3-star set if you can afford it for both build and tech. Of course, as you can see, it will reduce your cost. Other than that, there's a lot of ways that you get resources and maximize how you're spending your resources to be able to save. Just as an example, I do want to show you the cost for upgrading. I'm currently at headquarters level 28. The cost for upgrading to headquarters level 29, and mind you, this is with 4-star build gear, is 179 million food, 34 million wood, 21 million steel, and 10 million gas. This is not a cheap upgrade. In addition, you have to have your wall level 28, your vehicle depot level 28, and both of those cost heavy amount of resources. So you can definitely see as you get higher up in headquarters level, as you level up higher and higher, the cost gets almost prohibitive. So you really have to be able to maximize how you're using your resources. So I do want to show you how you can know exactly kind of where you're at with your resources without outside of just going into your bag here and going to your resource tab and then looking and saying, well, I have all these resources. That's great. How much do I have overall? I know I need this much. How much do I have? So if you go into your headquarters and up here on the right hand side, I'll actually highlight it here. You'll be able to see what's called your sanctuary overview. If you go there, you can actually see exactly what's in your bag. So for food, I have 28 million, approximately 16 million food, 2 million steel, 2 million gas. So you can see I'm a far, long way away from headquarters level 29. So I really have to pay attention to how I'm using my resources. So now that we know how to find what we have and where to look to see what we need, anytime you click on the upgrade, it will show you the cost for your next upgrade. And if you have the gear, that will help reduce that cost. So once we have the requirements met, how do we get the resources? So one of the first things that I want to mention is absolutely gathering max daily. So as you can see here, some of my gathering troops just returned, but I usually have 5 troops out gathering, and I have 5 marches. Depending upon your max march queue, you want to have as many of your marches out gathering resources all the time. This is absolutely probably the most important aspect of resources. And that might sound obvious, but it's very easy to, be sitting around playing the game, and like I have here, I only have 2 marches out. I should actually go out, make sure that I have all my marches out all the time, unless I'm, raiding zombie layers, um, or anything else. So that brings me to the very next topic that I wanted to talk about, which is the world map, which is down here in the corner. You can find it right there, and that will tell you where you are on the map and where everything is located. Now, this does show you, the super weapons, your alliance is marked in the little blue characters, and everything else. But this is the entire world map for our state. I'm in State 16, Unity State, Governor Darth Virus, and we're going to be going to war here soon, the next 15 hours for Wasteland War. But up until that, you can see this is the entire state. Now you can select the location on the map, and it'll show you what's in that area. I can tell you from experience, and I don't have the exact algorithm or the layout, but I can tell you, I'm going to show you here on the map. Within this area right here, the central area where you can see all the super weapons and my alliance, this is the tech hub, the Zenith Tech Hub. Right around this area is the greatest amount of resource spots. And what I mean by that is the level of the spot. So for instance, let's go back out to the world map here, and you'll see that if you go to the tech hub, all right, that resource spots are 6, level 7, level 6. Now this is in the wasteland. This is the area directly surrounding the tech hub. So if you're gathering in this area, you have the greatest chance of finding level 6 and level 7 resource spots. I don't even think 5s will spawn in the wasteland area. It is only 6s and 7s. As you can see, almost every resource tile is taken because this is where the best resources are. That being said, it can also be difficult to, farm in this area because so many players with high might and big alliances tend to surround this area for the resource gathering and for war purposes. My alliance, NDD, Non-Decor Duco, is right on the edge of one of them as well, with our fearless leader, Blasting Fools, standing guard at the edge. As you can see, the level 7 resource spots go fast. However, this is where you want to be if at all possible. The difference between a level 7 resource spot and a level 6 can be significant, and it drops off quickly. A level 1 resource spot, which is normally on the edge of the map, as you can see here, this gas field, those give the minimum amount of resources, 1,000 gas. That's not very much. Level 7, I believe, is 20,000 gas, and a level 6 is 14,000 gas. And that might not seem like a lot, but you're talking about a 20 times difference between level 1 and level 7. Food, for example, 20,000 food for a level 1, whereas level 7 is 400,000. So definitely a big difference. You definitely want to be gathering closer to the tech hub if at all possible. Now, I do believe the breakdown is pretty much on a linear basis, so the further out you go, we have the tech hub here in the center. The resources are mostly 7s and 6s, and then right on the outskirts of that it becomes 5 and 6s. Well, if you go a little further out, say approximately here, you're going to be starting hitting 4 5s, maybe occasionally 6s as you get closer to the middle. And then as you go further out to say here, you're going to start looking at 2s, 3s, 4s, maybe the occasional 5, and then pretty much everything from there to the edge of the map, you're looking at everything from 3 down all the way to 1. So the closer you can get to the center, the better your resources are going to be for gathering. That's an important distinction, and of course you can look on the map and figure out kind of where you're at and what's going to work best for you as far as gathering. But you do want to gather as much as possible every day to make sure that you're covering your costs for daily usage. So a good example is if I'm training troops every day and I need to get my troop count up, as you can see mine are idle, but if I'm training 500 to 1,000 troops a day, you can look down here at the bottom and see the resource cost. I need 331,000, and that's just for my fighters and food. So that's, over 1 million in food I need to gather every day just to cover training, and that's only about 500, 600 troops. So I normally, this brings us to the next topic, which is managing your troops for dailies. So you do want to do your daily quests every day. That's going to make sure that you get all of your resources, your free resources that you get. You can see here I've claimed all of mine, but every time you complete a new task, a daily quest, you will get rewarded for completing it. That being said, you want to do your dailies every single day. And of course, gathering is considered one of your dailies, gathering wood, food, steel, and gas. So you want to make sure that you do that. And then, excuse me. So gather your stuff for your dailies. Make sure that you're completing all your dailies. This will give you the max. And one trick that we need to do for our dailies is that we have to train troops. Now, if you don't have enough troops for war purposes or for whatever you're currently trying to do, then you're definitely going to want to train the amount of troops that you need to get to where you want to be. So if you only have, say, 100,000 troops and you have a March cap of, say, 150,000, well, obviously, I would recommend getting your troop count up over your March limit. So if you don't have enough troops for one full march, then you need more troops. Once you kind of reach that plateau where you have 2 or 3 full marches, then you can start dialing back how much troops you're training. You don't necessarily need all that many unless you're very war-centric. As you can see here, I actually have over 600,000 troops, and my March cap is about 178, 180,000. So that means I can send out pretty much 3, 4, 5 marches with troops, no problem. So I've dialed it back, and as you can see here, this is your parade grounds where you can see exactly the number of troops you have and of what type. You can see that on the right hand side, it says Tier 1, T1 troops. Now, what I started to do to save resources, because I need 250 troops every day for my dailies, is the plan is go in, select a tier 1 troop, and as you can see, 250 is what you need for your day. You can actually lock this with the lock button right here on the left hand side. Select your lock button, or select your number first over here. You can actually click this button, type in how much you want, 250, hit OK, and then you can lock it down. And what's great is it locks it down for all of them, not just your fighters, but your shooters, your vehicles, and your riders. So all are at 250. So now when I go in, it's already set up for exactly how many troops I need, and it'll save it like that. I select my tier 1 troops, and you can see the cost for me is 0 gas, 0 steel, 0 wood, and only 14.3 thousand food. Doing that 4 times, I have no problem gathering as much food as I need by only training this. Now when I'm ready tomorrow, I'm going to have to do the same thing, but obviously I don't want a bunch of tier 1 troops when I have tier 9 troops. So what I'm going to do instead is I can click on here, and you see this arrow right here. I'm actually able to upgrade my tier 1 troops. So I've selected my tier 1 troop, and I'm going to upgrade it, and you can promote it, and the promotion cost is going to be less than getting the tier 2 troop, because I've already paid part of the cost. So now every day I can go in and upgrade from one tier to the next on the same 250 troops. Right now one of them is out gathering, so my tier 1s are out gathering probably in the Alliance gas field, so they're not really showing up right now. But you can see in my parade grounds where they exist. So I have, 250 crossbowmen, 250 nomads, 250 taxis. So what I'll do is when they come back from gathering, instead of upgrading or creating new troops, I'll upgrade them, I'll tier them up to the next level. And then in this way, I get my 250 troop allotment at the minimum cost every day. This is one of the biggest tricks that you can do, especially if you're resource starved like I am right now, to make sure that you are still doing your dailies and maximizing how much resources you are able to save every day. Which brings me to the next topic. saving resources. I showed you in your headquarters where you can pull up your sanctuary overview. You can see what you have in your bag. Now this is total, okay, in your bag. So what you want to do, you always want to maximize what you have in your bag to the best of your ability. And how you get more in your bag is by doing daily quests, finishing events, and of course, you can purchase boxes and things like that as well, which will help fill your bag up. Without having to spend the money, doing your dailies and doing events is the best way to add stuff to your bag. So if you're able to keep your bag growing and the resources that you have also growing, and you're using less than what you're producing, then you're going to be on that positive run to be able to build up to these big numbers for your headquarters, okay? So that's one of the only ways that you can do 179 million food is to have it in your bag or in the Alliance warehouse. So you want to watch your bag management. Spend less resources every day, still completing your dailies, without touching your bag, if at all possible. And that counts for all resources. Okay? Now, some of the other ways that we can get resources, especially for our bag, to help fill it up and save for those big ticket items like headquarters uh, and walls and things like that, and your fighting camps, um, is by doing zombie layers. Obviously, your daily quests, do those every day. Special events, and there's a couple other ways. But first, let's talk about special events. So as you can see here, it's New Year's 2021. Happy New Year's, everyone. We're going to be looking at some of the regular events that we have going on. Reservoir War is a great one. It's difficult, but you can get some rewards, and you have lesser resource boxes and resource choice boxes. Um, I don't necessarily recommend spending them here. As you can see, a resource choice box is 500 water. There are definitely better things to spend it on, but if you're desperate for food and you've participated in Reservoir War and earned some points and you have water bottles, you can go in here and use them. But otherwise, for the most part, what you're going to want to do is complete your other types of tasks. As you can see here, Global Ace Commander is one of the biggest and best events that is offered in the game. It happens every 2 weeks. It lasts for 1 week, and then you have a week off. And that week off is critical because it allows you to save up stuff so that you can do the next Global Ace Commander without spending too much. But as you can see, each phase allots a certain amount of resources for completion of that phase, and 150,000 food and wood for just doing 20,000 points of improving your might is a really good reward, and you get that reward for each phase up to phase 6 where you get gas and steel. So because this is a week-long event, you have basically 6-7 days of phase rewards, and most of them include resources. This is a great way to build up your resources, especially on ones that don't require the cost of resources. So improving might for gear might, chip might, module might, and cube might doesn't cost any resources other than those materials. So you can save up your resources for the big events, for the big builds like your headquarters. So going back in, we also have Break Loose, which is a very difficult one and doesn't usually reward as much resources, but occasionally you get these lesser resource boxes or choice resource boxes. I did want to make one distinction. As you can see, and this is a good tip to know, for lesser resource box versus choice resource box. When you're looking at a lesser resource box, you can see here that the food is worth 150,000 and the gas is worth 7.5 thousand, and these are the opposite tiers of resources. One's very expensive, one's very common. So the food is worth 150. In a resource choice box, which you would think would boost all of these, actually the food and wood are exactly the same. There's no difference between a lesser resource box and a resource choice box. So you never, ever, ever, ever want to use a resource choice box for food or wood. You're literally going to be wasting it. The only thing that you want to buy with a choice box is gas or in some cases steel. The difference between the two is huge. I wish I had one to show you. But at any rate, lesser resource boxes are a great way to get more food and more wood when you need it. I would not use the lesser resource box on gas or steel unless that's all you need, and in which case, do what you need to do. Special operations is another event that only happens occasionally, I think every couple of days, and the rewards for this are almost always resources for your bag. Food and wood predominantly. If you get up to the higher tiers, you start seeing that you can hit gas and steel, which are the resources that are some of the hardest to get in the game, and of course diamonds and Eva points, which are all very good. Now, special operations depends upon your hero level and strength, so you may or may not be able to do as well as you would like, but you always need to try. You get 10 attempts. As you can see, it only took me 2 tries to get the max rewards. Now, of course, your mileage may vary, but depending upon your troop strength, you're going to want to try all 10 attempts, especially. Always do your events to the best of your ability and maximize the amount of resources that are coming into your bag in that way. Now, another thing that's not necessarily considered an event, it's always ongoing. This one is Commander Duel Conquest. This actually only happens every other week. It tends to coincide with Global Ace Commander, which I think is why they call it the Commander Duel Conquest. So in here, if you go into the exchange shop, you'll actually see that they have plenty of resources that you can add to your bag. Now this is a very, very important boost. I want to make a note though. If you look down here, you'll notice if you look at the cost of these, gas costs 500 Commander Duel coins, and food costs for 500,000 food 400 coins. Now I can tell you from experience that a lot of people, the 25,000 gases definitely looks like a great buy. A little tip here, especially if you're higher level, getting that 180 million food is really difficult. This is one of the few places that you can get food extra cheap. Because it's only 400 coins, the cost difference between the two is actually more beneficial to purchase the food. It might sound crazy, and you can argue with me if you want, and I'm okay with it. I promise you, buying the food in Commander Conquest or wood when you need it is one of the best buys that you can do per cost. Alright, there are other rewards in here that you can purchase as needed. At any rate, every time you find an event that gives resources, you want to be able to maximize that. And especially Global Ace Commander and things like that. One point that I would like to make about events, especially Global Ace Commander, which I plan on doing a video entirely on that at some point in time, is that a lot of the days for the Global Ace Commander require you to use resources that normally you might have to buy. Now, if you save what you get from running the events throughout the week preceding and during Global Ace Commander up until the day that it's required to use by improving your might and consuming your enhanced material or getting your enhanced material in Gear Refiner, save all of that material up. You know, your promote choice boxes, your promote boxes, all of these items here, promote choice box 2, promote choice box. Save these throughout the week upcoming to Global Ace Commander, and then on the day where you need to level up that specific task, open all of them up on that day and apply all of them on that day. Leveling up specific times for specific events is one of the smartest ways that you can maximize your rewards for that event without spending any money, and thereby maximize the amount of resources you get in return. One of the biggest tips you can do. I know I have 101 million might. You might say, sure, it's easy for you when you're up there, and that's true. It's definitely a little bit easier when I'm not, struggling to put up a bunch of troops, and I'm not, struggling to get my might up. But the earlier you can apply that technique and these techniques, the better off you're going to be in the long run. You're going to find your growth happens faster and bursts, and that's okay. But the rewards that you are going to get are going to be maximized, and that's going to affect your play in the long term. I always try to maximize every event possible at no cost. I don't want to have to spend any diamonds. I don't want to have to spend anything else. That also being said, you can spend diamonds for resources. Now, it's very, very expensive to buy some of these resources. 1.5 million food is 1,255 diamonds, and gas is 1,200 for 75,000 gas. Just to point this out, it's 20 times the cost for the exact same amount of gas to food. 20 times, it costs you 20 times the amount of gems for gas as it does for an equal amount of food. That's crazy. I, I just want to point that out. Gemming gas and steel is not cheap and is not always worthwhile. If you need a little bit of food, or you need a little bit of wood, or you do need a little bit of gas or steel, obviously this is one route that you can go. I recommend, if you're going to gem stuff, gem food, um, and try to gather everything else. At any rate, let's move on. What else I want to talk about is heroes. Now, this is another topic that can cover an entire video all by itself, but I want to bring up quickly just the bottom tier heroes. If you look down here, all my 2-star heroes are at level 5. Now, the longer you play, this is going to happen inevitably. It's not something you have to work hard towards. It's just going to happen. But I would definitely try to focus on it and make sure that at least your 2 stars hit level 31, and if 5 stars is or plus 5 as soon as possible, because each one of them has a boost for resources. So Queenie boosts your food output by 10%. Zavis boosts your gas output by 10%. And of course, we can go and look at all of them. Amber is wood, and Maverick is steel. And then Kento boosts your hunt march speed, which is nice to have. I would focus on Amber, Maverick, Queenie, and Zavis first. And then, of course, your 3 stars actually boost your gathering speed. So Bard does wood gathering speed, Nock does your, that's a fighter specific, that's fighter specific. I forget which ones are which, but each one you're gathering march speed for Flint. Your 3 stars tend to be focused more on gathering, steel gathering speed. But these require, again, level 30, I think level 31 to open most of that stuff. At any rate, that's a whole nother video, but definitely that is a way to boost your output. So the next thing I do want to talk about is talents. Now, talents, especially if you have been able to reach VIP level 10, talents are going to be a great way to boost how much resources you get, and if you need to increase your gathering speed and things like that. Now, I have my talent set specifically for production, and that's because it also improves your fast producer talent. I don't know if you realize this or not, but it instantly gathers resources from your resource buildings, 5-hour output, and it takes 12 hours to cool down. I think in the earlier video I said it was 12-hour production, but it's actually only 5-hour production. But if you have maxed out how much you produce, then now those bonuses apply to the fast producer talent, which means that if you have production maxed out and you hit fast producer, then you're going to produce the value with boosts for 5 hours. That's a big difference. So that's how I have mine set. If you tend to want to gather all the time, and you have the time and energy to put into constantly jumping online, sending out your gatherers again and again and again, then maybe you want to switch your talents to gathering, and that's perfectly acceptable. I just happen to prefer using the boost plus the fast producer talent, and that gives me the maximum production value. Of course, you also have Eva, which is an excellent resource for boosting production and also gathering skills, and that's in the economy tree. This, of course, also boosts your overall resource gathering, research speed, and build speed. So Eve is really important to increase those things which maybe you're lacking or that you want to be able to boost higher. I tend to be pretty balanced, of course, focusing on build and research speed. But as far as gathering goes, I try to be pretty equal across the board. As you can see, I boosted gas gathering because gas becomes a lot more important the later on in the game that you are. And it takes a little bit longer, it seems, to gather gas than other resources. As same with steel. So I would definitely boost those up if you can with EVA, and that'll definitely make for a lot easier gathering for you in the long run. So one other thing I want to talk about, and this is another huge topic that it probably requires a whole video. That's the rare earth field, the pit. Um, it's not very complicated, but there can be a lot to it. There's different tricks and tactics you can use to maximize your production of rare earth. But what I always recommend is getting as much rare earth as possible. As you can see here, you go down to the exchange. Not only can you get McCarty frags, which are a big deal, and your modules up, and this is also where you can get your first initial modules is from the rare earth shop. But the biggest thing I use rare earth shop for now later in game is for resources. As you can see, this is a production of food, steel, and gas. Now, it is still 20 times different between gas and food here, but it's always equal. So rare earth shop is where I predominantly use the rare earth to buy gas and steel. Food and wood, there are other ways to get that are as equally or greater than. For instance, Commander Dual Conquest, it's cheaper to buy food there than it is here. So I use these resources to get as much gas as possible, steel when I need it, and of course, occasionally I will pick up some food if I just need a little bit for a specific task and that's all I'm missing. But this is another critical area that you need to master to get as much resources as possible. Of course, you can get marks of glory too, but this is where I almost always exclusively use rare earth for the resources. So what else can you do? We've talked about gathering. We've talked about troop boosts and EVA boosts and talent sets and mastering events and the pit. So what else is there? Well, use your alliance. Your alliance can be a great benefit and help you out. And of course, one of the biggest things that you can do as an alliance is make sure that you are choosing wisely which alliance production RSS spot you're producing. My alliance right now has a gas field, and of course you can see here almost everyone is gathering in the gas field. It absolutely is critical to be gathering at the alliance RSS spot every day. The gathering speed is faster, your production speed is faster. As you can see, I've already gathered 22,000 gas. And I have plenty more to go. The Alliance gas field will actually run out before I max out. And then we tend to we switch between steel and gas because they're both pretty costly. And especially higher level alliances, you definitely want gas and steel. Early on, it's almost more beneficial for wood initially because wood is a very precious resource in the beginning of the game and leveling up past some of those critical areas. Tier 7 troops, getting up to them requires a lot of wood production. Once you kind of pass that level and you're focusing on tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 troops, you're going to want to switch to steel and gas because it's going to produce a lot more for you. And of course, those are the more costly of the resources, especially when in terms of gems and things like that. So the last thing I can talk about is your sanctuary. And this is, of course, setting up your sanctuary for resource production. This is where a lot of your resources are going to come from. As you can see, you collect them, and of course they max out when you reach that cap level. So I don't have mine set up exactly the way I want it, but I'm still working on it. A lot of things change over time. And that's one thing I do want to mention is, when you're playing early on and you're first starting out, your needs are going to be different than later on in the game. Initially, you're going to need a lot of food, you're going to need a lot of lumber, and then you're going to find yourself wanting steel and more steel and more steel. And then you're going to be like, oh, I don't have enough gas. And then I'm back to I need more food. So things will change. But what you can do, just here, you can see exactly what you have of each. I have 3 farms, 5 lumber mills, 1 virology lab, 4 boot camps, 8 infirmaries, 7 steel plants, and 6 gas fields. Now, I can tell you, I have figured out what I think to be the best setup for each of these items as far as quantity goes. Realistically, you want to maximize the number of resource producers that you have. Now, steel and gas, like I said, are the most expensive resources in the game. So, what I would recommend is having 8 steel plants, 8 gas fields, 4 farms, 5 lumber mills, and 1 virology lab. And then boot camps, you only need 4 realistically, and infirmaries, you only need 5. As you can see, I have a lot of infirmaries, but I thought that the game was going to be a lot more war based and I was going to lose troops constantly. And I found that a lot of events actually protect you from losing troops permanently. So, your infirmary, while being important, since I only participate in the events where my troops are protected, I don't need infirmaries as much as I thought I did. Now, boot camps, some people will tell you, you need 6, 7 boot camps. And maybe for them at a certain given time, that might be accurate. But I can show you right now at VIP level 10 with my balance boosts on, with only 4 boot camps, and they're not max level. Most of them are not max level. I always have one at max level. But with my boot camps, I can train a maximum of 1,455 troops. Okay, 1,500 troops per camp. And usually my time for that, I believe, is under a day, 22 hours, and I can produce. So I can produce, what is that? Almost 6,000 troops every day, across the board. So that's with 4 boot camps. I don't think you need any more than that, and you might even be able to get away with 2 or 3. I do recommend 4, and then I would have 5, at least 5 infirmaries. And of course, the fewer you have of a building, the more you want it as close to your headquarters level as possible. You want its level maxed out if possible. And of course, to upgrade your headquarters, you will need some of these maxed out anyways. So that being said, that's how I would set up my sanctuary. You have 35 spots for your sanctuary, choosing how you allocate those spots. And early on, you have to unlock them, so you won't have all of those to start. But as you progress, you'll find that you need more of a different item. I think closer to the end game, it's smarter to have, the four farms, 5 lumber mills, 1 virology lab, 4 boot camps, 5 infirmaries, and 8 of each steel and gas. And this is going to give you the maximum benefit for resources and help you out the most in the long game. So you definitely want to focus on those things. And one of the last things I do want to talk about is the bank. Now, a lot of people, you may or may not consider gems a resource, but because you can gem for resources, and because gems can be used for a lot of different things, it is important to make sure that you're producing gems. Now, they give you some great options here. You can do a 1-day deposit for 7% or a 7-day deposit for 7%. Pretty easy to see that it's probably better to do the 1-day deposit. But a lot of people might look at this and say, well, 30-day deposit, you get 50% back. That's way better. So I'm going to put my, deposit in for 30 days. The reality here is that because you're cashing out your 1-day deposit every day and you're getting 7% back, this is over, if you do a max deposit of 1,500 gems, this is over 100 gems per day. Now, you don't get a higher level deposit for a 30-day deposit than you do for a 1-day. So if I'm producing 100 gems a day out of a 1-day deposit, how much am I producing out of a 30-day deposit? Well, 50% of 1,500 is 2,250 is what you're going to cash out. So roughly, it's half of it. It's 1,500, 750. So you're producing 750 gems for 30 days, or 100 gems every day. So that's for 30 days. That's 3,000 gems. If you do the daily deposit and max it out, you are going to produce 3,000 gems for free every month of play. This is critical. Do it every day. Only do the daily deposit, the 1-day deposit, and make sure that you collect it every day, and you're going to produce 3,000 free gems every month. That is a big help for a lot of people, especially if you're free to play. So I definitely recommend maximizing that. And then, of course, as you can see, I just finished my quest for Alliance Showdown. I'm going to go ahead and collect that. So that's pretty much everything. Of course, you do have the mystery shop. I will make a note on this. The stars here make a difference on what you're getting. So the more stars, usually the more costly, but the bigger the turnaround of reward. So for instance, you can see here the steel, which is 130,000 steel, it's 1 star, cost me 104,000 steel. This is a no-brainer, obviously. All I'm doing is converting 104,000 steel that I have in, that I've collected, and putting it back in my bag with a reward up to 130,000. So I'm definitely going to purchase that. Now, some of these, like looking at this, 27,000 gas for 800,000 food. Like I said, it's about a 20% cost difference. Because this is 2 stars, this is actually means that I'm getting a better return for my gas than if I was, converting it. So I'm actually going to purchase that. And then, of course, using this for speed ups, I don't recommend that if you're resource starved. If you have lots of resources and, like, let's say, I had just tons and tons of gas lying around, which I do right now, I would buy this because a lot of times you can get these special surprise offers and the gems, and of course you can pay money for them as well. And these are usually, the special surprises are usually worth more than their dollar amount. So it's not always, if you want to spend a couple bucks, it's not always a bad idea to find the extra resources in here, and you can purchase it. And then, of course, this is for anti-serum, which I don't need a lot of, but I am going to go ahead and buy that anyways. I always try to level up my heroes. So Mystery Shop is a way that you can exchange one item for another and help boost your resources. If it's less than, like the steel where I was trading 104 for 130, always take advantage of those as often as possible. So make sure you are checking your mystery shop for the max boost. The only other thing that you can do to really boost your resources is participate in wars and farm inactive players. So this is definitely something that you want to do when you have a little bit higher might, when it's not going to cost you much. And then you can go out to the world map and you'll usually be able to spot the inactives by their resource or the level of their headquarters. For instance, this guy, he's only level 1. He probably played for a day or two and then just dropped the game. But the sanctuary is producing resources, and if I was to scout it, I'd be able to show you. And then, of course, these ones that have no name, it's just this state 16 with a random number. These are usually inactives, especially if they're pretty low. They were trying the game out, maybe they stopped playing, or maybe they only play super casually and they just kind of want to putz around with it and they don't really care too much. But farming these, especially you get higher up, you can find, like, this one's a level 16. He's probably producing some steel, maybe some, even if you're lucky, some gas. You can farm these guys for resources as long as your state is okay with you farming them. Our state has a peaceful status, which means we don't attack unless they have no alliance or are under a certain headquarters level. So all of these have no alliance, all of these players. So these are all headquarters that we could farm if necessary. And then, of course, we have the upcoming event, Wasteland War. And here, we're going up against other states, state 3, state 4. Depending upon the event when it starts, we might be up against different states. Well, we have all-out war with other states. So I can hop into another state and just farm, anybody at that point, and that's of lower might than me, and just go in and attack and take their resources. Obviously, you only want to do that if you kind of know what you're doing, and I'll have another video on that later. So basically, I think I covered everything. I know it's a lot. There's definitely a lot to getting resources, acquiring resources, holding on to resources. But the biggest things that you can do is gather constantly, know where you're gathering, do your daily events, do your special events, maximize your rewards, use your mystery shop, master the pit, and I think I've covered everything. Gem it if you need to, spend them wisely. If you have any questions, let me know. I know that's a lot to take in. I'm going to do probably a quick summary in the description below. But anyways, this is Valence Ring from Non-Decor Duco in State 16. Wishing you the best of luck in your upgrades and acquiring the maximum amount of resources. Thanks for watching.